Just picking up here, gonna go ahead and put in the progressive suspension. This suspension, when I talked to Progressive, they said that it wouldn't work, but I'm gonna go ahead and put it in because it's the spring seems to me to be about this is the original Indian spring and Polaris spring. This is the progressive, so I'm going to put this in because that amount of extra spring is what I think I could really use to just tighten it up a bit. So diameters and everything seem accurate. Interesting thing, when I took this spring out, the diagram shows a washer in place, and that washer was not in there. And this is the apparatus. So I'm going to put a washer in with a longer spring and see how that works. So we're going to start up. I've taken off the fender and the tire. Brake calipers hanging over here. So you go ahead and take off the turn signal light, and then go ahead and then take off the pressure on the stanchion tube, lower it down, and I'll crack the top on it, and then remove it entirely, take the top off entirely, dump the oil out, and then take the dust cap off, take the retaining ring off, knock the seal out, and then clean it, and then put everything back in. Also, as a step in there, actually, in order to get the spring and everything out, that compartment, I'll be compressing the spring and then taking the cap completely off. I may use a little bit of heat on it. It's got some fixative or some thread lock in it, so I'll be working on that. So that'll be what's up. So 10 millimeter, little 10 millimeter bolt here, just to get this off. I'm just gonna take that off and let it hang here. Make sure I keep nuts and bolts in the right order. Then next up, 6 millimeter to get off these bolts that are holding the entire unit in place. I'm just going to take these entirely out so that they don't provide any binding force to keep the tube in. These are all the same, which is nice. So with that off, then working to free this, also taking a note of where this is, so similar to what I did on the other side. Just going to twist this out of here. Now right about in here should be enough space to get my wrench on for the 30 millimeter. Just to crack this, it's not under a lot of spring force tension like a lot of these pre-cartridge bike headers are, so it's when it completely cuts loose, it's not a bad, dangerous thing. I'll go ahead and put in a couple bolts to hold that in place. Holding a stanchion tube makes it a lot easier to get a bite on that and release it. That's pretty much released right there. But it's being held in with the little blocker down below, or the dampening rod bolt that comes through the bottom. So that's all normal, but there's no explosive spring pressure on these cartridge springs, which is cool. So here then, still pretty full of fork oil. I'm going to go ahead and remove that lower 8mm bolt. We'll use this really excellent compressor tool. I'll put a link to it in the description. Without this, this job is not really possible from my perspective. This rig really makes it possible to fully compress the spring and get to a nut that is needed to be removed from underneath here. There's a nut that's inside of here that you have to hold on to remove this. So you got to compress this spring to get in on that nut, use a little heat for it to break the thread lock, bust that loose. That releases the dampening rod, and it gives you access to pull the spring out and access the castle nut top that will let you release the bottom little dampening rod bolt. This little bolt is another 8mm, so I just tighten it till it goes all the way to its stop point, and that has been enough to hold in there. So, you know, I thought it would go completely through, but it has this resistance here. It's got a pin in the bottom, and it seems to do a pretty good job of holding on to it. I'm still, you know, being careful with it, but pretty effective device. So you can see here how I'm lowering that, compressing that inside, and I get a pretty quick access to this nut, and then that's what I need to remove that. 14mm. Oops. Put that here, just to kind of hold it in place. And then I'm going to use a little heat on this because it was really hard to break loose last time on this side. Jeez. That's it. Amazing. Alright, so once that's removed, and it does come from the shop with heat, heat thread lock, like a red thread lock. So using some heat on that is going to be key to getting it to release. I took that gasket off so I didn't melt it. And then from here, I'm just going to release the pressure on the spring. I'm just letting this drain off a bit, and then I'll drop it into my drain bucket. Take the dust seal out, the retaining ring, knock the seal out, clean everything up, reassemble, fill with oil, put in a new spring, go from there. Just going to gently come under the fork seal here and relieve that. Going all the way around to open that up. I don't want to reuse it, so I'm just being gentle with it. Cut that off. Make sure it looks like it's in good condition. Seems good. I'll just reuse that. Got a new seal here. This is the forked seal kit, K&S stock. When we take this out, we'll most likely see that steel band facing up, so I'll just want to make sure and replicate that. Down in here, be pulling out the retaining ring. There's just a little area, nice little indentation there to grab that. I'm just taking care on the tube that I'm not scratching anything so that I don't score it and make room for new and fun leaks. Put this back on before I forget. Okay, now this is the slight knocking exercise to get those out. That knocks out what I need to replace. So I'm taking off this old seal. I can see the should be the ring in there. Usually you can see the metal reinforcement ring in there, but that's the way I'll be putting it back. I go ahead and clean this up. So race and then my little washer. So carefully slide those up and off. We'll clean those too. And I'm just using this suspension spray clean. Kind of inspecting all the parts, make sure nothing's broken, floating around like it shouldn't be. And then I'm just using this EWK little tool to help knock in the seals and the races. And I adjusted these to place them a little bit more equidistant on here. so that they can help to hit more equally. And that starts that. I'll go ahead and put on the seal. And again, I'm putting the steel reinforcement ring facing up. What I'm looking for is just to see that I go below where the retaining ring goes, and it looks like I've gone that far. So I'm going to see how the retaining ring fits. Oop, heard it snap into place there. And it is in. So it looks good. I'll go ahead and put on the dust cap, clean it a little bit. Can use the driver to put this in a little bit more. Oops. 17 foot-pounds. Uh, 17 foot-pounds on there. My little apparatus worked, and so did this. I'm going to leave that on for the oil and spring install. Okay, so on the left side, the specs call for 277 cc's. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm putting in a little bit bigger spring. You can see here, here's the original, here's the one I'm putting in. Tight coils facing down, adds in, takes off a little bit of the oil, so I'm gonna, where it calls for 277, I'll probably put in about 275. So before I drop this new spring in, I'm gonna put the oil in, and then I'm gonna pressurize it, and then see how that works. So go from there. So I'm using this V-twin fork oil, and we'll shoot for about, I don't know, 275, 270, somewhere in there. And I'm just going to be looking for any leaks. And then in the manual it recommends to hold down pressure for about 10 to 15 seconds. And that sort of lets the oil get into all of its places it needs to. In are the Progressive Suspension 11-1576. So I'm going to go ahead, and again, just taking a look, the tight side of the springs goes down, same thing, tight side of the springs down, but a couple centimeters more spring to see how that behaves. So this fork cap, the damper rod that goes into it, a really nice sizing of what that is, I believe, is a 10 millimeter by 1 pitch. That is very difficult to find at just the general hardware store. So what I found is a 3/8 by 24 pitch, and that binds up enough on the dampening rod to hold on to it, enough to pull it up so that when the spring compresses, it will allow me to get on this nut. That's where I need to be. So I need to compress this spring, you know, about 5 inches. The challenge with these progressive springs, these are the 11-15-76, they're a bit longer than the original spring, but that's what I'm hoping will give me the tension that I need, the additional torque. But I'm not sure if this much spring will cause it to bow in the tube, and it may not work. So I'm going to go ahead and see if it'll work. If not, I'll just put the originals back in. The major intent of this effort was to replace the seals that had blown, and I believe that they blew because I'm a bigger guy, but I like the nimbleness of this bike. So I wanted to see if I could get more than 3,000 miles out of these seals before they blow. So who knows? We will see. So we'll go ahead and try to see if this compression will work just the way that it did with the original spring. And if it doesn't, then I'll just go to the original spring. And like I said, the original intent of this effort was to just stop the fork seal leaks that were occurring. Alright, so I'm clear of the spring, properly compressed there, so that's good. It didn't bow as much as I thought it would, but you can see it is a little bit. This will lighten up some though as I get the cap on. And I'm going to put a washer. And the washers that came with the progressive kit weren't anticipating this nut, so I'm putting that nut on, or that washer, to make sure that that is, it's part of the design of the original template, that there is a washer in there, and it's wider than what the progressive kit came with, so I just got some of those. So this is a 14 nut, and this is a locking nut that's made to go to the top of that. So let's see which one we got here. And then this is a 30 millimeter. But what I found is you're never going to get to this nut without that spring clamp. And then the torque on this, I think the 16 foot-pounds is into the tube, but I was going to try just leaving it at 17 and seeing if I could hit that here. Because it's actually getting that nut to bust loose, because then it locks. So it's kind of a interesting setup to effectively get that nut to come up and lock against the fork tube head. That's great. Now then, just relieving pressure on the spring clamp, and that should be it to then fully reinstall it. Make sure these components are backing off correctly. That in. So now it's just a fairly minimal amount of pressure to put the tube back in, and then it's reapplication onto the bike. So that spring actually seems to work. I'm going to test ride it, but it's the 11-15-76 from Progressive. Looks like it's a go. This tool is awesome. Just off of Amazon, about $100 less than the Indian one. And then torque on this is 16 foot-pounds. Giving the bike a little support so I don't tip it over. Oh yeah, that's quite a bit more tension than finger tight. Okay. Oh, and I'm there. Okay. Not a whole lot of tension that I'm having to apply there, and I'm just gonna move it right up till it's pretty much flush. Looking at this one, oh, I guess it's up maybe a little bit more than I thought from the shop. So maybe right in there. Try that. Just to make sure that they're the same. Oops. Oh, this will clamp around, right? Yeah, that opens up and goes on. Alright, so now for final, I'll just make sure I do the absolute correct spec, 18 foot-pounds. So we'll just go a tiny bit. This light just have this little bolt set up. Let's go ahead and put that back on. And I guess let's just drop right on the lower clamps, gives you a nice estimation of where they should be. Good. Alright, we're going to go ahead and reinstall the fender and the tire, the wheel, and then put in front brake pads. And set this up here. Inside. Torque on these is 18 foot-pounds. Already set up for that. That's the fender. The wheel axle bolt is a torque of 52 foot-pounds. I'll go ahead and adjust up to that right now. Alright, so that's all done. Now then, the pinch bolts go in 18 foot-pounds. I'm going to do a little thread lock, just a medium strength. another 6mm just to pinch that clamp in, or the axle in place so it doesn't go anywhere and make things real exciting. Another 18 foot-pounds. Alright, so that is the completed fork job. And when I was taking it apart, I just looked at the brake pads. I feel like it'd be good to put on new brake pads while I'm goofing around on stuff. It was a really hard bit to find, by the way. I had to special order that 16mm. Let's see, and the brake calipers call for 35 foot-pounds. So I'm just going to go ahead and between these pads, just make sure the pistons are pushed back in. These actually have, seems like pretty good wear on them. I mean, it's only 3,000 miles on this bike, but I think I'll go ahead and change them out. For this one, T25, I believe. Yeah. Torque's 25. There's a little circlip on the star clip. Star down here. So pop that off. These kind of like hold into that spring clip, and then they go into the pin. So this is how I'll reinstall them. These actually aren't too bad. I probably could just leave them, but just like to freshen things up when I'm going through working on these items. These are generic. Click back on.